So I hope everybody is able to see me and hear, right? And you're able to hear me, right? Okay, good. So we'll get started. So we were discussing about the concept galvanometer yesterday, the concept of moving coil galvanometer. And what is it we saw? We saw an important factor yesterday. Let me recollect what we saw yesterday. So this is an important point, guys. I hope everybody is making a note of it. For a moving coil galvanometer, so the torque produced is how much? NIBA sine 90. Why are we putting 90 degrees? Theta is 90 degrees, since what kind of a field do we have there? We have a uniform radial magnetic field, right? So this is one thing. And secondly, what is the restoring torque that is getting created? It is K into phi, where K stands for the torsional constant and phi obviously represents the amount of deflection that is produced. So NIB into A should be equal to K into phi. Accepted? Right? So from this we got an expression phi is equal to NBA divided by K multiplied with I. So I told you that this whole thing is a constant. So phi is directly proportional to I. Right? Then I told you another thing also, that if you rearrange the equation, you will get phi divided by I is equal to NBA divided by K. What do they call this phi by I as? This is called as?
Current sensitivity.
So what do we mean by current sensitivity? It is the amount of deflection that is produced in the galvanometer when you pass unit value of current. Okay, like if I have a galvanometer whose pointer is initially at 0, if I pass unit value of current through it, then let's say it is getting stopped here where it is producing a deflection phi. So the amount of deflection produced, that is the amount of output you are able to see to the amount of input current that you have given, is what is called as current sensitivity. Okay. Then if I write the reciprocal of it, what can it be called as? I divided by phi will be equal to K. Yes, we call this parameter as figure of merit. Right? So that's it, as simple as that. Right? Then there is another parameter also called phi divided by V, which is called as voltage sensitivity. So what do we mean by voltage sensitivity, guys? So amount of deflection that is produced for unit potential difference. So phi divided by, in the place of V, can I write it as I into R, which we call it as voltage sensitivity. But what is phi by I? Phi by I is NBA divided by K. So NBA divided by K into R is what we call it as voltage sensitivity. Am I clear with this? Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we will see what are all the units of it. Units of current sensitivity will be division per ampere. Unit of voltage sensitivity will be division per volt. Then what is the value of, what is the unit of figure of merit? It will be ampere per division. Okay. So I hope you guys made a note of all these points. Right. Yesterday I told you that a galvanometer is what? It is a sensitive device. Means it will detect the presence of current. Right? A galvanometer basically detects the presence of current. Now the next question is it possible to convert this galvanometer into an ammeter and a voltmeter? Can we do that? We will see. Okay. So generally the symbol for a galvanometer is like this. You put a G around it. Okay, in your textbook they would have put something like this. So this is a galvanometer with its resistance as Rg. Okay. So how to understand this? This is a galvanometer with resistance value how much? Rg. Okay. Now I have certain questions, guys. Now if you talk about an ammeter, so the heading is conversion of galvanometer to ammeter. So how will you convert a galvanometer into an ammeter is the question. Okay. Now tell me one thing. What is an ammeter?
It's used to measure the flow current passing
It
through
is first. It is used to measure the value of current. Second, if I talk about the resistance of an ammeter, okay, before I talk about resistance, how is it connected across a circuit? It is connected.
Series.
Why do you connect it in series?
So in series connection, current won't be divided.
Sir, in
In
parallel,
case of parallel, current will be
divided.
divided, sir. So that is why series.
Correct. So it is connected in series across the device where current is to be measured. Okay. Third, if I talk about the resistance of an ammeter as a whole, how much will it be? If I talk about the resistance of an ammeter as a whole, how much is it going to be? It is ideally supposed to be how much? It is ideally supposed to be equal to 0. It should ideally be equal to 0. Why? Because you told me that you're going to connect an ammeter in series across a device where you're trying to measure the value of current. See, for example, if I have a resistor across which I have connected a battery, if I need to measure the current across this device, right? What is I according to the equation? It should be V divided by R plus the resistance of ammeter, where Ra is the resistance of ammeter. But if the ammeter also has some resistance, what is going to happen? Is it measuring the exact value of current through this resistor? The answer is no. Right? So you have supplied a potential across one of the resistors. Your interest of study is to find the value of potential, value of current across that resistor. Okay. Now what is happening? It is because of the resistance of the ammeter, there is actually a decrease in the value of the measured value of current. In order to avoid that, what we need to do is generally the resistance of the ammeter is kept very, very low. Okay. So it is kept very low, that it is approximately 0. Generally, the resistance of an ideal ammeter is taken to be 0. Okay. So ideal ammeters resistance is considered to be 0. Have this in your mind. Okay. Now I have a question. Okay, we discussed about an ammeter, but the topic is not about an ammeter. It is a galvanometer which is to be converted to an ammeter. So what I'm trying to say is, since we have discussed, now you know how a galvanometer is working, right? How does it work? You have two magnets in the shape of concave. In between a coil is placed, and the coil is in turn connected to a pointer, and the pointer revolves, all those things. So you know the basic electrical and the magnetic components of a particular of a device named galvanometer. Now, you need to do some alterations in those arrangements so that the galvanometer becomes an ammeter. Means you want to make this galvanometer into a measuring device. So what are we supposed to do? That is what we are going to see now. So I have a galvanometer with resistance Rg. Okay. See, generally I write it like this, but I'm writing it. Generally, I put Rg on top of it. It is understood. But since in your textbook they put a resistor and gave it, I'm just showing it to you. Okay. I'll just show that part alone. This is what they did. Okay. Next. So I have a galvanometer which is by default going to have some resistance. Right. This experiment actually you'll do it in the lab. You'll find the resistance of the galvanometer for an experiment called figure of merit. At that point, you will get the resistance of the galvanometer somewhere between 100 to 120 ohm. That is the ideal value that you will generally get it in the lab. Okay. So to this galvanometer, we are supposed to connect another resistor so that the whole circuit can be called as an ammeter. For that, I'm going to borrow the idea from the basic structure of an ammeter. Okay. So an ammeter is basically a device with very low resistance. So since galvanometer is already having a resistance of 100 ohms, if I am able to connect another resistor so that the overall resistance decreases, then I can call that particular device as a ammeter. Okay. Now tell me, if I give you a resistor, then how will you take that resistor and connect it across this galvanometer so that it can be called as an ammeter? So now let's recollect. When resistors are connected in series, what happens to the overall resistance? Does it increase or decrease? When you connect, I repeat, when you connect two resistors in series, does the effective resistance increase or decrease?
Will increase, sir.
Increases, sir.
Increase, right? But we need an ammeter, we need a device whose resistance is supposed to be less. So what are we supposed to do? You take another
Parallel.
yes, you take another resistor and connect it in parallel across whom? Across this galvanometer, so that this whole circuit is what is going to behave like an ammeter. Okay. Now, if I take the current, if I take the whole value of the current that the ammeter is supposed to be measured as I, then at this junction, what will happen is the full scale deflection current will flow through the galvanometer, and the remaining current I minus Ig will flow through the so-called parallel resistor, which I will call it as S. Okay, and there is a reason why I call it as S, because this is called as shunt resistance. So generally, shunt means parallel. So if you connect any resistor in parallel across any device, you call that as a shunt resistor. Okay. So shunt basically means parallel in terms of electrical. Shunt generally means something which divides the path. See, it is because of this parallel resistor, the current is getting divided. Right. So the question is, how much should be the value of the shunt resistance that you need to connect so that you can design an ammeter whose range is of this much value? Suppose I say you design an ammeter which can measure a maximum value of 5 ampere. So the current the ammeter is supposed to measure, the maximum current it is supposed to measure is 5 ampere. So keeping that 5 as the upper limit in your mind, you need to connect a particular resistor across the existing galvanometer in parallel, so that the whole circuit is now an ammeter with a range of 0 to 5 ampere. Okay, so how much is the value of S? For that, what I'm going to do is observe carefully. If I take this point as A and this point as C, if I take this as C and if I take this as D, so what is going to be the potential across AB? Is it not IG into RG? What is the potential across CD? Is it not I minus IG into S? Right? Since AB and CD are parallel, can I write VAB is equal to VCD? Then IG into RG will be equal to I minus IG into S, which implies S is equal to IG into RG divided by I minus IG. So this is the value of shunt resistance that we need to connect across. This is the value of shunt resistance that we need to connect across the galvanometer so that it becomes what? An ammeter of a particular range. Please write it down. Where?
Sir, can you explain? Sir, can you explain how you equated AB and CD, sir?
Parallel, no?
Sir, so parallel currents are equal, sir.
Parallel current and voltage.
Sorry, sir. Parallel voltage are equal, sir.
Yes. So I is the current range of ammeter. Okay. IG is called as the full scale deflection current. Okay. RG is called as the resistance of galvanometer. That's it.
So I have a doubt.
Tell me.
The resistance of a galvanometer will approximately be very less, right, sir?
100 ohm, no? 100 to 120 ohm is the range. Cannot say less in the sense it is not almost equal to 0. Moreover, the galvanometer is designed in such a way that it cannot measure the value. It can only sense. It's not less. It's neither less nor high. It's moderate.
So if we connect this S resistor, then it becomes very less.
Then, yes, to answer your question, the galvanometer plus the shunt resistance is what is called as an ammeter. So if I ask you what is the resistance of ammeter here, what are you going to say? It is the resistance of galvanometer into the shunt resistance divided by the resistance of the galvanometer plus shunt resistance. Because it is R1 R2 divided by R1 plus R2. They both are in parallel. No, galvanometer and shunt resistance are in parallel. So the effective resistance will be R1 R2 divided by R1 plus R2.
Okay, so I understood.
Okay. So this is the resistance of galvanometer.
Sir, it is only in this case, right, sir, or it is general?
In this case.
Sir, resistance of ammeter, no, sir.
Resistance of, oh sorry, resistance of ammeter. Okay. Shall I move on? Shall I go to the next topic? The next topic is conversion of galvanometer to voltmeter. Next is how are we going to convert a galvanometer to voltmeter? So it's very simple. You have a galvanometer across which, if you connect a resistor in series, okay, so resistance of the galvanometer is Rg. Across this, you connect a resistor in series, then this particular combination is what is going to behave like a voltmeter. So you able to understand? So resistance of the galvanometer plus the series resistor that you have connected, the whole combination is what we can call it as a voltmeter. Okay, it is very
RA
simple
will
again.
be RG plus RS, right, sir?
1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Sorry, no? See
Then
here,
RA will
I just
be
wanted to
RG
tell
plus
one
RS, right, sir?
RB, resistance of voltmeter. Because, see, first of all, we need to understand one thing. What is a voltmeter? The voltmeter will measure the exact value of potential difference. So how is a voltmeter connected across any circuit? It is connected in parallel. So when you connect it in parallel, right? So you have a resistor. Across this resistor, you are connecting a voltmeter, for example, like this. Right? When you're connecting a voltmeter in parallel, what are we supposed to do? You need to ensure that the resistance of this voltmeter is very high so that the current that you're trying to pass, you need to ensure that maximum current is flowing through the resistor. Only then I into R is going to give you the exact value of the potential. It is then it will be able to measure the exact potential difference across that value. Or else what would have happened if this device also starts consuming some current, IV, then there will be a decrease in the value of current as a result of a decrease in the potential. So voltmeter will not be able to measure the exact potential difference. So ideally, a voltmeter should have resistance of infinite value. Correct? So ideally, a voltmeter is supposed to have a resistance of infinite value. Generally, it will be around 5,000 to 6,000 ohms. It is a high value. Okay. Now, what is going to happen is, to the already existing galvanometer whose resistance is 100 ohm, you need to take an other resistor of high value. Okay, this RS is there, no? That RS should be of very high value, and you take that and connect it in series across the galvanometer so that the combination of the series circuit is what is going to behave like a voltmeter. Okay, now the question is, we know that the full scale deflection current that is supposed to pass through the galvanometer is IG. So the same IG will pass through RS also. Okay, now the question, if suppose this galvanometer is to measure a total potential difference of V volt. Suppose I asked you to design a galvanometer which can measure between 0 to 3 volt. Okay, so if the highest range is to be 3 volt, since you will know the value of IG and RG, you can calculate the value of RS from that 3 volt and tell what is the value of RS that you need to connect across the galvanometer. So now observe. Can I say the potential drop across the whole circuit, potential drop across AB, can I call it as IG into RG plus RS? Right. So if this VAB is what I call it as V, the voltage to be measured by voltmeter, Okay, if I call it like that, then V divided by Ig will be equal to Rg plus Rs. Then what will be the value of Rs, guys? V divided by Ig minus Rg. So you can, if you know the value of voltage you need to measure, if you know the full scale deflection current and you know the resistance of the galvanometer, then you can decide how much is the series resistor that you need to connect across the galvanometer to make it a voltmeter. Is that clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
I'll do some problems, don't worry. You'll be able to understand. Now, what is going to be the resistance of the voltmeter? It is the resistance of galvanometer plus the series resistor that you have connected. This is what is the resistance of galvanometer. Correct?
Voltmeter, sir.
Again, same mistake. Huh? Resistance of voltmeter. Sorry. Okay. So one last point I forgot to mention in the case of ammeter is you're connecting a shunt resistance, right? The value of shunt resistance should be very low, so that maximum current flows through the shunt resistance. Whereas in the case of series resistance, Rs should be very high in the case of voltmeter. Please make a note of these 2 points. So in the case of an ammeter, the shunt resistance should be very low, so that maximum current flows through the shunt resistance. Okay. Whereas in the case of voltmeter, the series resistance should be very high. The series resistance should be very high. Okay. Now we'll do some problems, guys. I hope that you guys have understood. We'll proceed with some problems. Okay. Problems are simple. And this is a very important concept also. Have that in your mind and prepare accordingly. Now let's see. So in the circuit 4.27, the current is to be measured. Okay, the circuit 4.27, current is to be measured. What is the value of current if the ammeter shown is a galvanometer with resistance Rg is equal to 60 ohm? So this ammeter, had it been a galvanometer of 60 ohm, then what would have been the value of current measured by this device? So can you guys tell me? I is equal to V divided by R effective. So I will be equal to how much? V is how much, guys? 3 divided by 3 plus Rg. So 3 divided by 63, which will be 1 by 21 amperes. So this will be the value of current that will be measured by the so-called ammeter had it only been a galvanometer. So this is a hypothetical question. This galvanometer will not be able to measure, right? Had it been a galvanometer, then it would have measured this much value. Second, okay, but they asked this thing only, what would be the value of the current? They didn't ask that ammeter will measure or something. The ammeter shown is a galvanometer of resistance. Instead, what they could have told if the device have been Fourier plan. If the device shown is a galvanometer in the initial case, second case, if this is a galvanometer which is converted into an ammeter by a shunt resistance of 0.02 ohm, then what would have been the value of I before that? what is going to be the resistance of the ammeter? Had it been a galvanometer converted into an ammeter with a shunt resistance of how much value? 0.2 ohm, and this is going to have 60 ohm, right? So what will be the value of Ra, guys? It is 60 into 0.2. I think it is 0.02, right? 60 into 0.02 divided by 60 plus 0.02. So what we can do is 60 plus 0.02 can be approximated to 60 itself, so that you cancel this and this. So approximate value will be 0.02 ohm. Okay, you need not sit and calculate the exact value, because in the resistance, what is going to happen? In the case of parallel connection, the resistance is going to decrease. So it will be 0.02 ohm. So what is going to be the value of current it is going to measure, guys? 3 divided by 3 plus 0.02. So 3 divided by 3.02, it will be point something. So it will be close to 1. This 0.99 ampere. Right. What happens in the case of C? Had it been an ideal ammeter with zero resistance, means if this had zero resistance, what would have been the current in the circuit? I would have been 3 divided by 3, which would have been 1 ampere. Okay. Okay. So let's do next set of problems. (4.27). Let's try that. So there is a galvanometer coil which has a resistance of 12 ohm. So galvanometer coil which has a resistance of 12 ohm. Okay. And the meter shows full scale deflection current of 3 milliampere. So Ig is equal to 3 milliampere. How will you convert the meter into a voltmeter of range 0 to 18 volt? So the voltage, the maximum voltage it is supposed to measure is 18 volt. Okay. How will you convert it? So what are we supposed to do to the existing galvanometer? We need to connect a resistor in series. So how much is the value of resistance you will connect it in series? Rs is equal to V divided by Ig minus Rg. So what is the value of V you are going to measure? 18 divided by Ig is 3 into 10 power minus 3 minus Rg is 12. So this will cancel 6. So 6000 minus 12, it's nothing but 5988 ohm. So you need to connect 5988 ohm resistor in series with the 12 ohm resistor to make it into a voltmeter which can measure up to 18 volt. I told you, right, generally a voltmeter's range will be around 5000 to 6000 ohm resistance. Clear, guys? Is it clear or any doubt?
Sir.
Sir, so if you have a resistance of 5988 ohm, we can convert the given circuit into a
You need a,
voltmeter, right?
yes, you need to connect that much value of resistance in series with the 12 ohm galvanometer. Then it will become an voltmeter. Okay. So the next one I want you guys to try. Next one, you guys try. So there is a galvanometer coil that has a resistance of 15 ohm and the meter shows full scale deflection for a current of 4 milliampere. How will you convert the meter into an ammeter of range 0 to 6 ampere? So resistance of the galvanometer is 15 ohm. Full scale deflection current is 4 milliampere, 4 into 10 power minus 3 ampere. How will you convert the meter into an ammeter of range 0 to 6 ampere? So the value of current it is supposed to measure is 6 ampere. Okay. So what do we need to do? You need to connect a shunt resistance S whose value is Ig into Rg divided by I minus Ig. So Ig is how much? 4 into 10 power minus 3 divided by into 15 divided by 6 minus 4 into 10 power minus 3. So that will be 600 into 10 power minus 3 divided by 6000 minus 4. So 6 into 10 power minus 2 divided by 6000 minus 4 is 5996. So how much ever is the value? Those many ohm is what we need to connect in parallel so that it behaves like what? It behaves like an ammeter. Okay. So this is all about the conversion of galvanometer into ammeter and voltmeter.
Sir, should it be 5 point? Should come, no, sir. Actually, the denominator value should have a point, no, sir. Decimal point.
Right?
So, yes, sir. So 6 minus 4 into 10 to the power minus 3, sir. So, so if 6 minus 0.0004 means 5.996 should come, no, sir.
1 minute wait. Now it is okay. So I took this 10 power minus 3 as 4 by 1000. I took LCM. I took the 10 power 3 to the numerator. 10 power minus 3 and this will get cancelled. So 600 divided by 5996.
It will be 60, right, sir? 15 into 4.
Is it 60? Okay. 60 divided by 5996. Whatever is the answer, that's going to be 0.00 something. Okay. So this part you calculated. Right. Other than this, things are clear.
Yes, sir.
Now see. Okay. Did we discuss cyclotron? We finished cyclotron, right?
Yes, sir.
Wait, somebody tell me.
Yes, sir.
Did I discuss about the velocity selector and cyclotron? We are done, right? Okay. So then there is one last percutor. Okay, this is the biggest chapter you have. This is the last topic of this chapter. So we would have seen Biot-Savart law. What did Biot-Savart law? How did Biot-Savart law help us solve problems? So what is it mainly used for? So we use Biot-Savart law to calculate the magnetic field due to a current carrying element at a given point. Right? Like for example, you take the first chapter, you had Coulomb's law and Gauss law, right? So where did we use Coulomb's law? Coulomb's law was used to calculate the force between 2 point charges, and Gauss law was used to calculate the electric field due to symmetric charge distributions. In a similar way, we have Biot-Savart law. So Biot-Savart law is used to calculate the magnetic field at a given point. And why is this thing used? So similarly, you have another law which is similar to Gauss law. Here we call it as Ampere's circular law, which is used to calculate the magnetic field due to the conductors which are symmetric in nature. Okay, and the formula goes like this. Suppose so write down the heading as Ampere's circular law. Okay. Suppose you have a current carrying conductor due to which you need to calculate the field at a given point P. Okay, then there are certain steps to be followed. I'll tell you those steps, then I will tell you what that law is. Okay, if you have a current carrying conductor and you have a point at which you need to calculate the field, you suppose the current carrying conductor is symmetric in nature. If it is symmetric in nature, then what we do is first is we will consider a two-dimensional shape which is called as Amperian loop around the current carrying conductor. We will consider a two-dimensional shape, that is an Amperian loop around the current carrying conductor, which is also going to pass through the point where field is to be calculated. Okay, you will consider a two-dimensional shape, which is also called as an Amperian loop, around the current carrying conductor, passing through the point where the field is to be calculated. Okay, so this Amperian loop should be symmetric with the conductor. Okay. Second, find the direction. All these things will not be in textbook, so please write it down. Find the direction of magnetic field due to the current carrying conductor. Find the direction of magnetic field due to the current carrying conductor at the point where field is to be calculated. At the point where the field is to be calculated. Okay. Third, on the Amperian loop, okay, on the Amperian loop, consider an element dl. So on the Amperian loop, consider an element dl and assign direction to it, That's it. Okay. Fourth, apply, or I'll put this. Find the net current enclosed by the Amperian loop. Find the net current enclosed by the Amperian loop. And the fifth point is apply the formula. See here, though I put a line like this and a circle, it's not read as loop integral, rather it is read as line integral only. Okay. The reason why it is read as line integral is because you are integrating with respect to distance. That's the only reason. So apply the formula. Line integral of b vector dot dl vector is equal to mu naught into I net. Okay, if you observe, this formula is similar to something else. The loop integral of E vector dot dA vector is equal to 1 by epsilon naught times the charge enclosed. Do you guys remember this? So instead of instead of electric field, you have magnetic field. Instead of area, you have length. Instead of charge enclosed, you have the total current. And instead of 1 by epsilon naught, you will have mu naught. See, most of the cases you see, right? 1 by epsilon naught will be replaced with mu naught. So wherever you find 1 by epsilon naught in electrostatics, you will find mu naught in case of magnetics. Okay. Apply the formula, line integral of, you read it as, I repeat it, line integral of b dot dl is equal to mu naught into I net. Okay. And the last is solve for b. That will give you the answer. Okay. In your textbook, they would have told you need to consider all small elements, all those things will confuse you. So if you just follow these steps, that is more than sufficient for you to solve any problem that is based on Ampere's circuit law. Any problem. Okay, shall we apply it? With the hope that you guys have written it, I'm going to start applying it for the conductor here. So I'm going to apply Ampere's circuit law to derive the magnetic field due to an infinite length wire. So what is the magnetic field due to an infinite length wire? You already know this. It is mu naught I divided by 2 pi r. Right. We got this answer using Biot-Savart law itself. But now we are going to derive the same expression using Ampere's circuit law. So there is an infinite length conductor, and this is the point where you are interested to calculate the field. So what is a two-dimensional symmetric shape you can think with respect to the straight line that you can draw and name it as Amperian loop?
Square, rectangle, anything.
No. It should be a circle. Because if I take a point P here, if the point P, see this distance is R guys, okay? So observe my forefinger, the point P can be anywhere, right? The point P can be anywhere in the space. So when I try to locate the point P, what is the shape I'm going to get with respect to that moving point? It is going to be a circle. So only option is circle, and this circle is the Amperian loop. Okay. What is the next step I told? And I told one important point, the Amperian loop should pass through the point where you're trying to calculate the field. Secondly, using right hand thumb rule, tell me what is going to be the direction of magnetic field at point P due to this current carrying conductor. Using right hand thumb rule, what is going to be the direction of magnetic field due to this current carrying conductor at point P? It is going to be into the plane. Right, that is the second. So find the direction of magnetic field due to the current carrying conductor at point where the field is to be calculated. Third, on the Amperian loop, consider an element dl and assign direction to it. So if I consider an element dl, here I am assigning the direction in the direction of, so dl is in the direction of B. I'm assigning it in the direction of B itself. Okay, which I will call it as dl. Then what is the formula telling us? 1 minute guys, my device got stuck. Then what is the formula telling us? Then what are we supposed to do? The line integral of B dot DL is equal to mu naught into I net. So what is the net value of current that is flowing through this Amperian loop? How many current carrying conductors do we have? We have only one. And what is the total current carried by that current carrying conductor? It is I. So the line integral of B into DL into cos 0 degrees is equal to mu naught into I net. I net is nothing but I. Okay. So if I take that B outside, why am I taking B outside is because you try to calculate it at any point P, which is at a distance R from the current carrying conductor, the value of B is a constant. So B into the line integral of DL, cos 0 is 1, is equal to mu naught into I. Now, if I add all such DLs in the Amperian loop, what is it I'm going to get? 1 minute, wait. Yeah. So B into the line integral of DL is equal to mu naught into I, guys. So if I add all the DLs on the Amperian loop, what am I going to get? If I add all the DLs, you will get the circumference of the Amperian loop. So B into 2 pi R will be equal to mu naught I. So how much is going to be the value of B? Which implies B is equal to mu naught I divided by 2 pi R. Accepted? So B is equal to mu naught I divided by 2 pi R. So did you guys understand this step? Are the steps clear, guys? So when you do the line integral, you will add all the current carrying, not the current carrying, you will add all the small elements that are present on the Amperian loop. So when you add everything, you will mostly get the circumference or perimeter, something like that. Okay. Whereas in the case of Gauss law, when you add everything, you will get the surface area. So since you are seeing this for the first time, there is no worry. You have 3 more days time to revise it. Okay. By Monday, I'll be completing this chapter. So what I suggest is before the next class, go through the concepts and come, because I'll be solving one important question from here. This question is very important. Okay. If you have to understand this, the only option is you have to revise this and come. Okay. So any other doubt from today's class, guys?
No doubt, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, then if there is no doubt, we can wind up. Let's see you all tomorrow, the next class.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.